gone, and probably for me, you never will be. Outliving my little brother? This just wasn't the plan. As the older brother, I was supposed to die first. Same as always, Ed, butting in line. I've watched, sometimes with anger, sometimes with grief, and other times with pride, as the world has mourned your passing and other people have claimed to tell your story. But I was with you from day one. We shared the experience of coming to this country and figuring out how to fit in. We shared a record player, an 800-square-foot house, a mom and a dad, and a work ethic. Later, we shared the back of a tour bus, the experience of becoming successful, of becoming fathers and uncles, of alcoholism, and spending more hours in the studio than I spent doing anything else in this life. We shared a depth of understanding that most people could only hope to achieve. We shared a last name, and we shared a band. And here's what I have to say. Chapter 1. In the beginning, God created Van Halen with a little help from Ed and Al, and the people saw that it was good, a celebration of life and everything it means to be human. Now that I've got your attention. However you start our story, it starts with music, even if you start before we were born. Our father, Jan Van Halen, was a Dutch musician who played all over Europe in orchestras and jazz groups. When World War II broke out, he joined the Dutch Air Force, so they had him play in the marching band. He was proud of that, as he should have been. He never talked about what came next. The Germans invaded Holland in 1940 and conscripted the entire Dutch army. If you refused, they shot you dead on the spot. So the next thing he knows, my father is being forced to play German Oompa music and propaganda songs more or less with a gun to his head. When the war was over, Dad went to Indonesia for a 6-week gig at a radio station on the island of Java. That's where he met our mother, Ati. He ended up staying 6 years. Mom, whose proper name was Eugenia, was an Indonesian girl who grew up with a dozen siblings and almost as many maids in a big house. They were wealthy because my grandfather had invested in the railroad, but it was still seen as a move up the ladder to marry a white guy, usually. You have to understand, our dad wasn't a regular white guy. First, he was a musician, so already that's not so good. Plus, he and his buddies drank a lot, so that's strike 2. He drove a Norton motorcycle, and the first time he put our mother on the back of it, she was so little and light that she flew right off. Dad was fun, and he was handsome, and women loved him. Mom married him on August 11th, 1950. Now, this is just a year after Indonesia gave its colonizer, Holland, the finger and said, "Hey, we're grown-ass men and women, and we don't want you around here anymore telling us what to do." Consequently, white Dutch guys like my dad weren't particularly popular or welcome, and he was having a hard time getting any work. So not long after they married, Mom left her homeland to go and live in Dad's. If you start our story with our childhood in Holland, you're still starting with music. I remember the boom, boom, boom of the pile drivers. That was like the soundtrack of my early childhood. They're always trying to claim back land from the water in the Netherlands, so the percussive sound was ever present. I can still hear it in my head. Maybe that's why I became a drummer. When I came along on May 8th, 1953, and Ed joined the party 20 months later, my mother was determined to make us respectable in all the ways her husband wasn't. A big piece of her plan was classical music. That's why my brother's name was Edward Lodewijk Van Halen. That's Dutch for Ludwig, as in Beethoven, whose real last name was Van Beethoven, just by the way. We had a ripping upright piano, and Mom made us take lessons, and this became a sore spot. We weren't allowed to leave the house unless we practiced. Ed and I were both good at it, and my mother was very proud of our ability, and very intense in her ambitions for us. She really wanted us to be well-educated and white-collar someday. She was hoping for concert pianists playing Carnegie Hall, not Van Halen with the monsters of rock. My dad, who was a musician, didn't push us at all. My mom was the one pushing us, Ed once told a journalist. You know the father in the movie Shine? That's what my mom was like. Shine is a biopic about the Australian pianist David Helfgott, whose father teaches him to play and then rides his ass mercilessly over the slightest error or sign of